is no longer music for the masses, as it used to be at the times of Duke Ellington and Basie. Jan Clausen, would you give us
I don't think it ever was music of the masses.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. They don't all deserve it, you know.
But it was real popular music, jazz.
It's better now, I think. More popular now than it ever was.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
I think that same way, too, yeah.
But don't you think that rock stars have got more success than you?
Oh, yeah, I think they probably have more commercial success.
But they always did, you know. We go back to the commercial music of the past. Was even more predominant. But now what's happening in music education in a lot of the school systems all over the world now, not just, we used to like to say just the United States, but I'm Canadian, so I'm weird. So I really enjoy the entire music education thing because we're starting to see the youth playing music. I mean, we're not exactly children, but we really are when we play our music because it's a love thing and we really enjoy what we do. And that's a predominant thing that we pass on, I think, to the young players.
How do you see that, Jay McShann?
Well, one time, if we can remember, the way I see it is when during the days of Armstrong and Ellington and Cab Calloway, those were days I can understand what you meant when you said a while ago what you said, and we did have a lot going then because I know that I used to tell my folks I was going to stay up late to listen to these bands when they were going to be on the air. But what happened, see, then you had a lull after that. See, after the wall, you had a lull. Then you didn't hear any of that music on the radio or TV or whatever there was for 25 or 30 years. And that was with the big bands. See, at big bands, and you didn't hear any black music, and you didn't hear too much of the white big white bands.
Too, you know?
Yeah.
So consequently, that's what we had. Then rock came in, and so all it had to do was to prevail because there was nothing else there for to listen to, and so these kids never heard this stuff before.
That's right.
That's just like they said, they're in school now, and they're getting this in school. But they didn't get that in school when we come along.
That's
but
right.
They get it in school now, so the young kids understand it. They come out and they enjoy it.
So this would explain why jazz slipped away in the favor of the masses. Huh?
When I was a young man, if I might speak just for a moment, I was a scholarship student, very fortunate one, at the French Conservatory of Music in Montreal, and the word jazz was just a terrible word. And nobody wanted to even speak of that at the conservatory. You know, nowadays they have a jazz band there. Nicholas Ayub is the conductor of it, and so we see what progress has been made there. And it was me with the French-Canadian jazz musicians that were in their 30s, and I was 16 years of age playing in a French-Canadian nightclub, and they would take me to the radio at intermission, and I would listen, and they'd say, listen to this, that's Duke Ellington, or listen to this, even Billy Eckstine's big band, which was a marvelous band, and they were getting airtime on NBC, on all the networks, were plugging the big bands on radio, and of course it was also beamed up into Canada. So we learned jazz by listening, which is still not a bad idea.
Certainly, gentlemen, I try, together with Hans Turberg, to get the translation of what you just said before. It's a hard job for me to do. Ich habe die Leute gefragt, wie man sich erklärt, dass eigentlich Jazz nicht mehr so groß populär ist wie zu Zeiten von Duke Ellington, Count Basie. Das wird zunächst mal bestritten, Hans Turberg, wenn ich das richtig sehe.
Ich bin sehr froh darüber, dass meine Auffassung bestätigt wird aus erster Hand. Weil ich bin auch der Meinung, dass Jazz heute viel populärer ist, als Jazz jemals war. Und was auch zum Ausdruck gekommen ist, dass man heute ein falsches Bild hat, wie populär unter welchen Umständen Jazz überhaupt in die Medien gelangte. Man hat gehört, dass eine gewisse Zeit Jazz überhaupt verboten war, als schwarze Musik über die Radiostationen laufen zu lassen. Und dass heute eben die Jungen Zugang haben zu Jazz, über Schallplatten, über Medien, dass sie geschult werden in Schulen. Es gibt Jazzschulen überall und somit ist vorherrschend die Meinung vertreten, Jazz ist heute populärer und man hat Zugang zu Jazz, was früher viel, viel schwieriger war.
Trotzdem hat auch Maynard Ferguson gesagt, dass zu seinen Zeiten man das Wort Jazz nicht mehr aussprechen durfte am Konservatorium und heute, dass das wieder ganz anders aussieht. Jay, you once led one of the most famous big bands of the world and you discovered Charlie Parker, the young, talented Charlie Parker. Would you tell us the story how you discovered him, Charlie Parker?
Well, in Kansas City, you know, during the days when Kansas City was wide open, you could pass by the joints and listen to the music as you walked past because they had it piped outside, you know. Mm-hmm. And so I'd only been in Kansas City about I guess about a couple of 3 months, and I heard some guy blowing, and it sounded different, so I went inside to see who it was. So that's when we first met, and so I walked up and I says, "Hey man, where you been? Where you from?" He says, "I'm from Kansas City." I said, "Well, I never met you. I thought I met all the cats in town." You know, that's the first thing you do when you get in town. You go around and meet all the cats and all the clubs, you know, and you get yourself known, you know. So he says, "Well, no," he says, I just got back in town." He says, "The reason you haven't seen me around," he says, "I've been down in the Ozarks with George Lee's band." And he says, "Hard to get cats to go down the Ozarks because everything's dead down there." And he says, "I wanted to do a little woodshedding," so I went down with George Lee's band. I've been down there for the last 3 months. And he says, so I said, "Well, maybe we'll get a chance to work together." He said, "Well, good." And so finally, when I did get my first job, then he came with the first group, which was a small band, about 5 pieces.
So you gave him his first job?
Mm-hmm.
Not, yeah, really. Ich habe Jay McShane gefragt, wie Charlie Parker entdeckt hat, weil Jay McShane hat Charlie Parker entdeckt. Er hat gesagt, das war in Kansas City. Damals war alles noch viel offener und größer und man hat einfach gehört, wenn jemand geübt hat, gespielt hat. Und einmal ist ihm der Ton aufgefallen, ist er reingegangen und hat gedacht, hey, die kenne ich ja gar nicht. Die Musiker kannten sich sonst eigentlich alle untereinander. Wenn man nämlich in eine Stadt kommt, sagt Jay McShane, dann kloppert man zuerst mal die anderen Musiker ab und schaut, wie sie so spielen. Und der Charlie Parker kannte er nicht und sie kamen dann ins Gespräch und so wurde dann eben dieses berühmte Charlie Parker, also wurde Charlie Parker entdeckt von Jay McShane, der ihm eigentlich den ersten Job gegeben hat. Wouldn't you like to lead a big band again as you did it in the past?
Well, it's, yeah, you know.
I'm interested in this answer.
Well, you know, after I came out of the service, I went into the service, and then after I came out of the service, that's when it was getting rough for big bands, you know. And so they told me, they said, the office told me, they says, "Look, forget about the big band. They said, just bring about 5 pieces and pick out your singer and come along, and we'll get the same money for 5 pieces as we get for a big band." Mm-hmm. So I said, "No, I want to hear the big band sound." So then I continued with the big band. They continued to book me, but then I got broke. After I got broke, then I gladly took a small group and stayed with a small group and I'm still with a small group.
But these days, just musically speaking, would you like to lead a big band?
Oh, it would be wonderful because that was really, I felt that was it. That was it for me, you know. But then, you know, you've got to make certain changes. When things change on you, then you have to make changes. Mm-hmm. So I was supposed to make change that I didn't want to make, but I...
You know, in that same type of history that's so wonderful, you know, I sat in with Louis Armstrong in Montreal, Canada when I was 13 years of age, when he had Big Sid Catlett, and he had, I guess it was Trummy Young, and Jack Teagarden had not come on the band yet. And that was a thrill for me, of course. As Louis said, "Get that young kid up here," because I'd been playing in the warm-up band. Mm-hmm. You know, and it was the same thing, though, that Louis was almost bankrupt because he loved his big band so much. Yeah. And most people are not aware that the only song that he sang was "Pale Moon Shining on the Fields Below," yeah. Right? You know, yeah. Mm-hmm. And what's that? I forget the name of the song.
Sleepy Time Down South.
Sleepy Time Down South, yeah. And that was all he sang. And Joe Glazer, the agent, you know, said, "Okay, you're going to play half as much trumpet, and you're going to sing twice as much, and we're going to put you there with 5 people and a singer, Right, you know,
They
he
became
said,
very big.
and that's when Louis became very, very big. But when I sat in with him, and it's one of my most favorite moments as a child, of course, you know, is sitting in with Louis Armstrong. You know?
It must be great. Must have been wonderful.
Oh yeah, right.
It was a big kick. I made records with Louis. It was a big thrill for me.
But let me translate first what the Jay McShane and you
sorry,
said.
I
No, it's
talked too
okay.
long.
It's okay. No, it's okay, Maynard. Well, ich habe Jay McShane gefragt, er hatte früher eine ganz berühmte Big Band gehabt und ob er nicht wieder mal gerne eine Big Band leiten würde. Und Jay McShane sagt, er würde eigentlich schon gerne. Es war eben einfach nach dem Krieg ein finanzielles Problem, dass die Veranstalter gesagt haben, du kannst schon mit der Big Band kommen, aber bezahlen können wir dir nur so viel, wie wenn du mit 5 Leuten kommst. Und damals hat er gesagt, doch, probieren wir es. Und dann hat es aber doch gemerkt, dass es eben nicht gut ging. Und Maynard Ferguson, der eine Big Band leitet, hat erzählt, wie er als 13-jähriger Junge von Louis Armstrong auf die Bühne geholt wurde. Und Louis Armstrong gesagt hat, komm mal, bring mal den Jungen vor, weil er hat in der Warm-Up-Band, also in dem Vorprogramm gespielt von Louis Armstrong. Und er bestätigt das auch, dass eben Louis Armstrong beinahe bankrott gegangen wäre mit der Big Band. Und man hat ihm gesagt, sing ein bisschen mehr und reduziere die Trompeter und dann geht das eben auch. Maynard, how do you manage today with your big band? Is it still a financial problem?
Well, I have been very, very fortunate, you know, and perhaps because I was younger, you know, as we get older, we all feel we're the same age, but, you know, Dizzy Gillespie, I grew up as the warm-up band of Canada, and I would play the first half hour, then it would be Duke Ellington, Count Basie, Woody Herman, Stan Kenton, Buddy Rich, and they were all about 10 or 11 years older than me, and when you're 16, that's a big age difference. Sure. Now, like I'm 63 and he's 64, and we
At least.
and we feel like we're the same age, you know, and we are basically, you know.
But how do you manage it financially with your big band?
Well, Germany pays very well, and so does Switzerland. No, I'm kidding.
Very well.
No, I was very fortunate.
Borrowing some money from him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And another thing that I enjoyed was we also had a commercial hit with the theme from Rocky.
Gonna Fly Now.
And Gonna Fly Now. And what I love about that is I'd love to tell you that I planned that and I manipulated that. But, you know, it's just like Take 5 with Dave Brubeck. It's either going to happen for this kind of musicians or it isn't. Right. And with me, somebody said, hey, you know, they got a new movie out called Rocky. And I said, yeah. I said, boy, it would sound great with your band. I said, well, just, you know, he said, well, send me a tape, because I did respect the person that said that. And when I heard it, I knew what I wanted to do with it, but I had no idea that was going to be a hit movie, because that isn't the way a jazz musician thinks.
That's right.
You know, and instead of that, I thought, wow, that's great. Okay, and we'll hit a funk groove, and we'll do that. Because you know, many musicians stay in the same mode and polish what they do, and I love them for it. The Count Basie band is predictable, and never have I not been thrilled by the Count Basie band. I love it, you know, and I look forward to hearing what I am familiar with when they say the Count Basie Orchestra, whether Bill's with us or not, because I've heard the band since, and it sounds great. I'm into change. You'll see things like the computerized electronics. This is my setup over here, that are so much a part of the music of today, and I still feel that it's only the guy that plays it or the guy that uses it and how he uses it that is important. But I went through the 2 years of the electronic band, the high voltage band, you know, and made all my jazz fans very angry. And but that is to stay with the truth. I wanted to see, and eventually I got a little bored with it. And as soon as I did that, I went back to the 4 trumpets, the 2 bones, the 4 saxophones, and piano, bass, and drums. And that was because that's what I love doing now. And frankly, I'm more comfortable at it. And boy, if he can translate all of that, he's really good.
I'm gonna try. With a little help from Hans. Or Jank, probably.
I told you, I talked too long.
Ich habe Maynard Ferguson gefragt, wie er es eigentlich managt finanziell mit der Big Band. Und er sagt, in Deutschland und auch in der Schweiz wird man sehr gut bezahlt. Da gab es Einspruch. im Ernst, er sagt, er hätte sehr viel gemacht und erzählt dann auch die Geschichte 1979, als er die Filmmusik für Rocky geschrieben hat, Gonna Fly Now. Da wurde ihm die Kassette geschickt mit dem Film und er hat gedacht, naja, machen wir mal die Musik und das hat ihm dann gefallen. Und er hatte nie daran geglaubt, dass das ein Riesenhit wird. Es wurde ein großer Hit und so kann er sich halt einiges leisten. Er hat dann sonst noch erzählt, was er so macht, dass er Ausflüge in die Elektronik gemacht hat, dass er heute mit diesem Computer auch spielen wird heute Abend. Wir sind sehr gespannt darauf. Da hat er die Jazzfans wieder verrückt gemacht damit, die Puristen. Und vielleicht kommt er dann irgendwann mal wieder zurück und spielt mit einem Bläsersatz und einer ganz einfachen Rhythmusgruppe. Und das wollte ich eigentlich sagen. Ich habe glaube ich, noch was vergessen, Hans, von der Übersetzung. Ah ja, die Count Basie Band, genau. Count Basie sagt er, jedes Mal, wenn er die Count Basie Band sieht, dann hat er große Freude dran, obwohl er eigentlich weiß, was ihn erwartet. Aber trotzdem, wenn das live abgeht, dann geht eben die Post ab und dann ist es einfach wunderbar und nichts kann das irgendwie ersetzen. Was it correct, was I said?
Perfect. I was listening.
Word perfect, wasn't it?
Yank Lawson,
Yeah.
you're conducting the world's greatest jazz band. I mean, the name, world's greatest jazz band, is a bit cheeky. Huh? It's a bit cheeky, world's greatest jazz
Yeah, that
band.
was
What's the story behind it?
modest title, you know. That was Dick
No,
Gibson's idea.
Honestly, I mean, whose idea was it?
Dick Gibson, the guy puts on the parties out in Colorado. I don't suppose you know anything about him, but it was his thought.
And
It was like Barnum and Bailey title, you know. You have to get in fist fights everywhere you go.
And how do you live with this title? Through the...
We don't use it very often.
So it's a bit cheeky, it's just an idea, and it's a signed mark, trademark, so to say.
Yeah. We made a lot of records under that name.
And you worked since a very long time together with Bob Haggart.
Yeah, since 1935 I've played with Bob.
Exactly.
With the
And this
Crosby
must be a
band
very
was formed.
strong relationship between you both. How do you divide the different jobs in music as arranging, conducting, announcing?
Well,
Strict
Bob,
division?
there's very little arranging done with the groups we play with these days, which are small jazz groups, you know. But he's a very good arranger.
And how do you work together?
How do we work
Strictly
together?
divided?
No,
Bob does this and you do
he
do
plays the
this
bass.
job? I know.
Very well, too. No, he plays the bass.
And are you like brothers, so to say?
No, he lives about, you know, he lived in Acapulco for a long time, and I lived in Maine. You know,
Wow.
So then he lived in California, and I lived, you know, different places.
But what kept you together for since such a long time? I mean, must be
Well,
a secret.
I don't think there's any secret to it, just a lot of luck involved, I suppose. And we've done all right. Yeah.
Wonderful musicians. Huh? Ich habe Yank Lawson gefragt, World's Greatest Jazz Band. Das ist
We
doch
had a
ein
lot of
etwas-
great people with us, you know, Billy Butterfield and Bud Freeman,
Yeah.
Bob Wilbur and those kind of people.
Ich habe ihn gefragt, World's Greatest Jazz Band ist doch ein etwas frecher Titel, die hervorragendste Band der Welt. Er sagt, das sei nicht seine Idee gewesen, sondern die Idee von Vic Dickinson. Und
Vic Dickinson war-
genau,
ja,
das war der
Gary.
Manager. Und der diese Band so zusammen... Gibson, Verzeihung. Der die Band zusammengebracht hat. Ich habe gefragt, was hat euch so lange zusammengehalten? 1935 hat das bereits begonnen, haben zusammen gearbeitet, Bob Haggart und Yank Lawson. Ist eine spezielle Chemie dahinter, ein Geheimnis? Nein, sagte er, wir haben einfach viel Glück gehabt und es ist gut gegangen und er ist ein sehr guter Bassist. Well, Maynard Ferguson, you're famous for your high notes. You've got the very rare ability to play in the upper reaches of your instrument. Would you tell us the secret? How do you play these high notes?
Well, I tell you
Yeah,
what.
no, this is a question you've answered a million times.
But right, but at the same time, you know, it's valid because I'd like to tell you once again that I really figured it out, and because of my mental capacity. But I think it's a combination of innocence and ignorance, and also a great adulation for the great players before me, just a little before me. And out of that comes the fact that when you're learning, you imitate, and if you're lucky, you don't imitate just one person. My mother went out and bought me the greatest collection, purely by luck, of jazz trumpet players. It included Berrigan, Vic Spiderbeck, all the great Ellington players, not just the ones that we know right off the top of our head, but like the Rex Stewarts and and all those kind of things. And all those guys were playing high notes then that sounded ordinary to an innocent 12 and 13-year-old Canadian, you know. And so I would imitate them. And I think that's where the range came, because you have a very fortunate thing that when you're 13 years of age and you look 10, and you miss a note, the audience says, "Isn't that adorable?" Yeah. Don't try that when you're 21 or older. You know, you get a different evaluation of your talent. And so I really think that had something to do with it. The fact that I was put into these big bands when nobody, even my own first big band in Canada, there was nobody within 15 years of my own age. And yeah, and believe me, they just put me in front of it. I didn't handle payrolls or anything like that when I was a teenager, I can assure you. But out of that, I think, came the natural instinct to the high note. Has always been if you give a child a trumpet, before you can tell him it's not too good an idea, he'll try to see how high he can play. And nobody knows why that is, but it's just something they do. Yeah.
So you teach it. Funny thing about that, he said he was trying to sell a trumpet to somebody one time. You know, he said the high registers had never been used. Brand new.
Isn't that wonderful?
Let me try to translate this. Ich habe Maynard Ferguson gefragt, wie schon Tausende zuvor. Er ist ja berühmt für seine hohen Töne. Er spielt auch in den obersten Register blitzsauber, wie schon Joe Zawinul gesagt hat. Er ist nicht nur ein Techniker. Und was steckt da dahinter? Was ist das Geheimnis? Er sagt, er hat einfach viel Glück, eine Mischung aus Glück und auch Ignorance und Innocence, also Nichtwissen und Unschuld. Und die Mutter hat ihm sehr viele Jazzplatten gekauft und er hat dann schon mit 12, 13 hat er eben das alles gehört und auch ausprobiert. Und er sagt später auch, dass es eigentlich erstaunlich sei, dass wenn man einem Kind eine Trompete gebe, dass das sofort die höheren Töne besser spielt als eigentlich die Erwachsenen. Und so ist er dazugekommen. Und das ist eigentlich das Geheimnis, sozusagen. But isn't it a risk to play too many high notes so that people in the audience just think, oh, well, okay,
well,
it's always
it takes a long while sometimes for us to realize that we are of our own nature. And this gentleman will play wonderfully the way somehow he was meant to play. And I feel that's the way I was meant to play, except for when I have a leader. And like Stan Kenton, I had 5 trumpets always. And there would be 3 other jazz trumpet players that would be wonderful jazz trumpet players that didn't have the super high register. So just like any great football coach, you said, we'll give, yeah, we're going to have Ferguson play the high notes. We're not going to try to have Shorty Rogers play a double high C because he might miss it. You know, on the other hand, I never feel bad about the, well, when it comes to having my own band, then it's my choice. And I still enjoy the excitement of playing in the upper register and all that. And I don't really try to worry about that maybe I should try to play like Miles Davis, because I enjoy listening to Miles Davis because that's who he is.
Nobody can play like anyone else anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Shouldn't imitate anybody. Ich habe gefragt, wird es nicht eigentlich mit der Zeit eine Mode, dann die hohen Noten zu spielen, dass die Leute eigentlich das nur noch erwartet? Und Maynard Ferguson sagt, es sei eben in der Band, und sie müssen mir etwas helfen bei der Übersetzung. So gewesen, dass er einfach die hohen Noten immer getroffen hat, aber eigentlich nie auf die Idee gekommen wäre, der Bandleader einem anderen zu sagen, spiel du mal die hohen Noten. So hat er eigentlich immer die hohen Noten gespielt, aber jetzt habe ich wirklich etwas den Faden verloren.
Nein, ich würde auch noch dazu etwas sagen. Trompeter suchen die hohen Noten, das ist ganz klar, weil es ist sehr attraktiv. Und es hat schon früher sehr viele Trompeter gegeben, Cat Anderson zum Beispiel, oder auch Louis Armstrong, die hohe Noten gespielt haben. Heute ist sicher auch die Ausbildung der Trompeter viel moderner und man lernt sie schon sehr früh, hohe Noten zu spielen. Und dann kommt dazu, dass auch die Technik der Instrumentenmacher viel besser ist. Die Mundstücke und auch die Trompeten sind viel einfacher zu blasen und man kann einfacher heute hohe Noten spielen. Also das ist auch eine Entwicklung, die man sehen muss, wie bei der Technik ganz allgemein man verbessert. Und hohe Noten sind sehr attraktiv, aber ich würde meinen, im Jazz ist eine hohe Note nicht alles.
Ganz genau. In Gottes Ohren. Well, You all have played so many concerts and festivals. Maynard, you appeared first time here in Bern.
This is my first time here, yes.
Jay McShann is about your 12th time here in
Yeah,
Bern.
we're going to have quite a few times.
Yeah, wonderful.
4 times.
So you can, to finish this little interview, you can give us an interpretation of this very festival. Is it just a festival like every other festival, or is it something special?
Well, what would you...
I mean, the groove here in Bern, the spirit of Bern, is it just like anywhere else? Playing in Bern at the festival is just like playing at another festival, playing a
Well,
gig.
Bern has always had a good festival, you know, and it's always been a lively festival and a moving festival, you know. Yes.
There's a certain spirit here in Bern.
Yeah, they got the spirit. That's what it's about. Yeah.
So you will feel this spirit too. You know the spirit of Bern exactly, Hank Wilson. It's
I
not
do.
your
I
first
think
thing.
it's the best festival.
Best festival?
So,
Oh, wonderful. And you will learn.
Well, I'm very happy to hear that. Now I'm looking forward to it.
Well, gentlemen,
best run and
ich
all.
glaube, das muss man, liebe Zuschauerinnen, liebe Zuschauer, nicht mehr übersetzen. Ich habe Jay McShann gefragt, der schon zum 12. oder 13. Mal hier in Bern auftritt, ob das ein Festival wie jedes andere ist. Und er sagt, nein, nein, es ist ein sehr spezielles. Und Hank Wilson doppelt nach und sagt, es ist eigentlich das beste Festival, das er überhaupt kennt. Maynard Ferguson, der zum ersten Mal hier in Bern auftritt, freut sich sehr darüber, und das ist natürlich auch Wasser auf Ihre Mühle, Hans Zurbrück. Gentlemen, thank you very much for this interview. I'm looking forward to having you on the show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.